Okay, so our next lesson is going to be on the zero product property. Today we have a swordfish, and your dad joke for the day is I wanted to go on a diet, but I feel like I have way too much on my plate right now. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. All right, so the zero product property. Um, to be able to use this, we are going to want to have um, to get down into factored form. Remember, that's with our parentheses with x and the two numbers that we find after we have factored something. We can use a zero product property when we are in factored form. So today's assignment is actually pretty easy and straightforward because your problems are already going to be in factored form, and you just have to find the zero product. All right, so what this means, some examples of a zero product property would be 3 times 0 equals 0, 0 times negative 42 equals 0, 0 times 0 is 0, and x times 0 is 0. So essentially, you guys have known this since elementary school, that the zero product property says anything times 0 is 0, it equals 0. And either term can be 0. It doesn't matter if your first term is 0 or your second term is 0. When you multiply them together and one is a 0, your answer will be 0. Okay? So let's look at some examples of what your assignment is going to look like. So here we have x plus 4 times x minus 7 equals 0. It's in factored form. I have my parentheses. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to set each individual one equal to 0 because the first term could equal 0 and you could multiply it to get 0. Or the second term could be a 0 and multiply it to the first term, you would get a 0. So I'm simply going to take x plus 4, set it equal to 0. Then I would minus 4 from both sides. And I get x equals negative 4 as one answer. Then x minus 7 equals 0. And add 7 to both sides. And you get x equals 7. And there's your two answers, very simply put. And these are solutions. Remember, we talked about quadratics, that whenever we're finding solutions, that means it's where it crosses the x-intercept, or the x-axis. So for example, here, this one would cross at negative 4 and 7, so it would look something like that. So what we're finding is the two places it crosses on the x-axis. Okay, that's the whole point when we're solving quadratics, is we're trying to figure out where does it cross the x-axis. Okay, so let's look at a few more of these. So we have x minus 10, set that equal to 0, add 10 to both sides, and x equals 10. X minus 5 equals 0, add 5 to both sides, and x equals 5. Now maybe, hopefully what you're seeing is it's basically just the opposite. See here I had x minus 10 and my answer was x equals positive 10 because 10 minus 10 is 0. X minus 5, well, x is 5 because 5 minus 5 is 0. So I'm trying to find zeros. I'm trying to figure out what I can turn this into, how I can turn this into a 0. So my overall solution answer would be 0. Okay, now we have 2x plus 4 times 3x plus 1. Well, let's take each of these and set them equal to 0. So we have 2x plus 4 equals 0. I would minus 4 from both sides first. And I get 2x equals negative 4. I would then divide by 2. And I get x equals negative 4 over 2, which is the same as negative 2 over 1 or negative 2. Okay, now let's take the 3x plus 1. And let's go ahead and minus 1 from both sides. And we get 3x equals negative 1. Divide by 3. And we get x equals negative 1/3 for my second answer. Now if you notice, basically all I'm doing is I'm taking the opposite of this number right here, so the opposite of 4 is negative 4, and I'm dividing it by this number in front of the x. So I got negative 4 halves here, which simplified to negative 2 over 1. And in this case, positive 1 would be negative 1 over 3. And that's what I got. Let me show you what I mean on this next problem. Okay, on this one though, before I get to that, there are 3 different x's on this one. So any one of these could be 0 to make the whole thing multiplied to get a 0. So we're actually going to get 3 solutions on this one. So this first one, we're going to take this x and set it equal to 0, and it's already solved. So there's my first answer. Okay, now let's apply what I just said in my other example. Take this 2, make it a negative, and you're going to divide it by the number in front of the x. So I'm predicting I'm going to get a negative 2/5. And here, x plus 11, it's just the opposite, so I'm going to say that answer is going to be negative 11. Now let me show you my work. So here I had 5x plus 2 equals 0. I minus 2 from both sides and got 5x equals negative 2. Divided both sides by 5, and I got my negative 2/5. See how that worked out? Here I had x plus 11 equals 0. Minus 11 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 11. So the x equals 0 came from this one, because I set this x equal to 0 and it was solved. Here, I set the 5x plus 2 equal to 0 and got negative 2/5. X plus 11 set equal to 0 and got negative 11. Because negative 11 plus 11 is 0. If you plugged in negative 2/5 right here and then times it by 5 and added 2, you get a 0. I think, yeah, hopefully you're getting the picture. Okay, let's try this one. So first with this x, we're just going to bring it down and set it equal to 0 for our first answer. Okay, x plus 8. You would set that equal to 0, and you get x equals negative 8. It's just the opposite. Okay, in this one, what's the opposite of negative 4? That's positive 4. Divided by what's in front of the x. It is a 6, which simplifies to 2/3. And there's my third answer. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Let's do this last one. Okay, this 4. There's a 4 out here. However, there's not a variable for an x, so I can't turn this into a 0, this 4. So I'm actually just going to leave it alone, and I'm only going to get the 2 answers from here and from here. Okay, so I would set this equal to 0, or I can just do it the quick way. Opposite of negative 7 is 7, divided by the number in front of the x, which is 2. Set it equal to 0, or just do the opposite of 3, which is negative 3, divided by the number in front of the x, which is 5. And there are my 2 solutions, or the 2 places that it will cross the x-axis. Okay, and so that is the end. If you have any questions, please email me or join the Zoom meetings. Hopefully you're all doing okay. Hopefully those shortcuts made sense. If not, just set it equal to 0 and solve. That's all we're doing. And then on our next assignment, we're going to actually factor a quadratic to get it into factored form, and then do the 0 product form. So we're just kind of expanding a little bit at a time. So there you go. Make sure you look at your assignment and get that turned in.